You got it. Okay, I think we're done with some of the logistics. Anyway, good afternoon. And the purpose of today really is to answer any and hopefully all of your annual report questions. As you know, we've done annual report training. We re-aired that video about a week and a half ago. Some of you attend, some of you didn't attend, doesn't really matter. This is annual report season, and I'm sure that you have some questions. So I'm going to show you what our approach is going to be today. And let's see, I got to unpause this one, right?
I believe so. Resume, there's a button. Yep, just the green arrow. Below that. Right below that in the black. And the green arrow on the right says resume, I think. Resume share.
Okay. Okay, so let me get rid of this window right here for a minute and tuck it away so that you're not seeing it. Okay, so the way I thought we would approach this in a very logical manner would be to entertain questions by each section of the annual report at a time. So we will go through this annual report. This happens to be Holy Families, and it's as of August. And I kind of redacted some information, but now you know it's Holy Family. Anyway, we're going to take it section by section so that we don't have to keep going back to something that we've already discussed before. And if it requires me to get onto the system, I'm prepared to do that too, to go over to the wizard and show you how that might work depending upon your question. So as we go through this section by section, if you have a question, put your questions in the chat and Jennifer will be managing that. And then we'll stop at that section. We'll answer all the questions, then we'll move on to the next one. So what I've done here is I've taken an annual report and I kind of marked it up and put some annotations next to each section. The two questions that I'll tell you that I get the most during annual report season is where in CMS does that data come from? And two, can I change it using the annual report wizard? Of course, I get a lot of other questions, but usually those are the two that I kind of get from a lot of the users. So let's start at the top. The very first section of the report, and I'm going to use my pointer here, is what we call the title section before the Treasury heading here. That's the title. So does anybody have any questions at all about the title section, where the data comes from? Any other question that you might have? Why we checked off some boxes? So raise your hand or enter a question in the chat box if you have a question on the title section of the report. Do we have anything?
I don't see anything yet. I'm not able, let me just go to the screen where I can maybe see everyone. We might need to look at the actual image of the meeting to see if anyone's raising their hand. I'm trying to pull that up now. Review, let's see.
Okay, while Jennifer's doing that, let me just point out some things. Okay, so you can read up here. This is what I've done. I'm not very good at it, but I try to do my best. Got some annotations. Are in blue, indicate where in CMS the data comes from. And if there's an asterisk next to it, it means it indicates the data cannot be changed from the annual report wizard. So since you don't have any questions on the title section, let me just tell you that if you ever had to change any of this information, at least up to here, you got to go to your conference page, which if you go to My Conference over to the left-hand side of your task pane and then go to the conference page, you will see this information that you're able to change. Do not forget to hit save, because if you don't click save, it's not going to be reflected in the annual report. So that's how you would change this information. If you had to change any of this information down here, where it says frequency of meetings and the reporting period from 10 10:01 to 9:30, then you would go to the configuration page. And you can change that information. Now you notice there isn't an asterisk next to either one. So that means you can use the wizard, and you cannot use, you can use the wizard to change it.
So John, there is a hand up. Somebody's reporting that in the chat. I can see that Laura says most of her questions have to do with the appendix. But Rosemary says there's a hand up. I'm actually not able to see that in my chat, so that's why I
I'm
wasn't
sorry,
able
Laura.
to see that. There's a hand up. If you could please put your question in the chat. I'm just not able to see that whose hand is up. Jerry, you have any idea?
Are you a co-host?
I don't think I am, but I also don't see it up here.
Well, let's see. What we can do is just a sec.
There is a hand up.
Yeah, here's the. Oh,
It was
Laura,
Laura.
yeah, she said most of hers have to do with the appendix.
About the appendix.
Mhm.
We're not there yet. We will get there, Laura.
Okay,
Okay? Yeah, we're gonna do it section by section. That way there, I don't need to bounce, or we don't have to have questions going back and forth, but we will get to the appendix of the report.
So you see the chat over here. Okay. So Laura from St. Gerard.
right.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, I need the,
So John needs to use the.
I need the mouse
Mouse,
to
which is
drive.
why I was.
We just put this over here.
That's great, yeah, that's
Let me
wonderful.
that's
reduce
all I need.
this.
Just minimize that. Okay, the next section of the report is the treasurer's report. Just to make the point again, it has an asterisk. It means it cannot be changed through the annual report wizard. Where does the data come from? It comes from your 12 published monthly financial reports, AKA MFRs. So I'll take questions on the treasury report. If you have any questions at this time, put them in the chat. Nothing?
What are some of the questions you've had in the past, if anybody's had any
There,
concerns specifically?
there really isn't, because, you know, like, this one's a layup as far as I'm concerned. Because if you're balancing each and every month, which you are, because you're closing in the published report, this is just basically a summation of all those 12 MFRs that were published. So unless, you know, you can, as a treasurer, create a spreadsheet if you wanted to. I've seen some treasurers do this, and then they balance this back to their spreadsheet, which basically is a byproduct of the MFRs each and every month. I don't think you need to do that because we really, very seldom I get any questions here. Once in a while, I mean, it's been kind of fluky. We get kind of like a weird number in here, you know, with special characters or something. And, you know, it happens to one conference, not all, but very seldom I get any questions whatsoever on the treasury report. And if you, I'm sure there's treasurers out there. If you know something that I don't know, please speak up. Because this one really, we don't get too many questions to zero on. Okay, so we're gonna leave the treasurer's report. Now we get into the fun stuff. This is where I get a lot of questions, usually. Okay, so we're gonna now work in the visit and services to people section of the report. Where does the data come from? It comes from closed cases with and without assistance and express assistance. Okay? Now, as you know, there's not an asterisk, which means you can update the information here through the annual report wizard. Now, before you ask me why without assistance would we update this report? Well, if you had a case and you close the case without assistance, obviously there's not going to be any number of people helped. But we are going to add one to the type of visit because it's still a visit. You just determine that you're not going to help somebody. So that's why we look at both the with and without assistance closed cases. And anything that comes from express assistance, if you remember how express assistance works, there's a number of people field that you put in that will update the number of help, and then it will add 1 to the number of visits. And it'll go in the other in-person visit is where it will go. So having said that, I'll stop there and ask if you have any questions about this section.
Doesn't look like it.
I think it's gonna be all on the appendix.
Or the new calculation.
Well, I guess so. Okay, so the in-kind services and good section, okay? Again, it comes from closed cases, but it's only with assistance. Pardon me, we got a question? We got a question?
Does Carla have a question?
Carla?
See if we can go in.
Carla from
Right.
St. John the Evangelist.
What, yeah, Carla?
Yes, can you hear me?
I
Yes.
can.
Okay, my question is about the information that you just provided, John, about an interview with a person, an in-person visit, but no services were provided.
That's right.
So we would enter those in CMS just like we would enter a case where we provided assistance.
Yeah, well, when you're working a case, you get to a point of where you're going to provide assistance to this client or you're not.
Right,
Right. So if you close that case without assistance, which you can do, what's going to happen is, depending upon the visit type, let's say that it was other in person.
right.
CMS would update the number of visit count by 1, but it would not update the number of people helped because you didn't help somebody. You closed the case without assistance. Now, obviously, if this was a case that you closed with assistance, it would up the visit count by 1, and it would up the number of people helped by the number of people in the family, which is the client plus all of the household members. So let's say it's 4. It would update the number of people helped count by 4. Does that answer your question?
Sort of, kind of. Let me give you an example so that way I can tell you what happened. We had a situation just yesterday where a woman came in and she needed rental assistance. And when it came time to talk to the landlord would not accept the assistance we were going to provide unless that person had the balance of what was due on their rent and could give it to me in a money order to put in the mail with our check. So because I, couldn't provide, she didn't have the money, we couldn't assist her.
Okay. So did you close the case without assistance?
Well, that's my question. All I did was say, I'm sorry, we can't help you based on what just happened and what your landlord said. And I had the documentation, but I didn't do anything with it. I didn't enter it in CMS. That's my question to you. Do I enter it in CMS and then close it without assistance?
Well, did you
I
go?
can answer.
Well, yeah.
I think the answer is yes, Carla,
Okay,
because you did spend time with the person.
yes, ma'am.
There was a
Yes, ma'am.
situation. It just so happens that the requirements weren't met, but it should be captured in case the person does come back. You can restart the case. But the fact that you spent time and effort, to understand it and attempted to help. So as opposed to canceling the case, which means it never existed. So
Okay,
the answer is, we would like you to capture the fact that, you did meet with somebody, but it ultimately no assistance was provided.
right, and that's the
Particular
second time that has happened. It happened the end of August and it happened again yesterday. I have the documentation and it's just sitting in my drawer.
You know, as far as it happening within the month, yeah, I guess it'd be nice to capture it within the month, but at least if you capture it within the year.
Okay, well, what I'll do, because I'm going into the office tomorrow to complete some data entry, I'll just enter those tomorrow.
And then when you do close it without assistance, it will ask the reason why.
Yeah.
And you'll explain the reason why, that you were willing to help,
Mhm.
but that and you can pay for partial rent, but the landlord would not accept partial rent, wanted full rent, and the person that you were helping did not have the balance.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, great. Okay, so we have two questions here, one from Sue and one from John. So we'll deal with Sue first. Knowing that CMS only counts closed cases, having troubles closing cases, how do you do that? What troubles are you having closing cases?
You can unmute yourself, Sue, and that way we can hear you.
Sue?
Which Sue is this?
Sue, yeah.
Okay, okay, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so if I go to one of my cases and I push close case, it says the case cannot be closed without assistance for as long as there are check requests associated with the case. But it's already been paid, so I don't want to withdraw it. I just want to close it. It's been handled.
Okay, let me ask you something. Are you clicking the close case button up on top, or are you going all the way through the workflow to the complete tab?
Up on top,
That's incorrect.
okay.
What you need to do is keep advancing forward till you get to the complete tab, and then you'll be able to close the case.
Okay, so a case doesn't automatically close when the treasurer pays it.
That's correct.
Okay,
You
Is
have
there-
to close, right now, you have to close your cases. Once you get notification from the treasurer that he has acted on your request. He could have denied it.
Okay. Sue, are you the treasurer?
I am,
So you're the treasurer, you're the one that paid it or did not pay it. And then
correct.
it gets sent back to the caseworker. And the caseworker gets the notification. And the caseworker does all the follow-up that might be necessary and closes the case.
Okay, let's just say that that's not been done in our conference a lot. Is there any way to group close cases from the year?
Not right
Not
now.
right now.
Okay.
We're working on it, but I think what you have to do, and the president or you should send a note out to all the caseworkers and say, please go in and close your cases.
Okay, thanks.
That's what I've done in the past with my conference, is I just request them to go ahead and close all their cases.
Mhm. Okay, thank
We are
you.
working on some functionality, but it won't happen this year.
Mhm. Okay, good, thank you.
Okay, so the next question is from John Kurtzky. John asks, do the number helped in the derived from all the cases entered throughout the year, and we do not need to do anything at this time except review this number? Sort of yes and no, John. I think you know this. Yes, what CMS knows, you're exactly right. If you wanted to just press the button, it'll give you the number of all the closed cases and number of people helped and that sort of stuff. It does that calculation, but you have special works programs as well, I'm sure. Christmas program, Thanksgiving program, backpack programs, Easter programs, you name them. CMS doesn't know about that. So you got to enter those in through, I would suggest, through Express Assistance. And let's say that it was a Christmas program and you helped 70 people. Then CMS would update the number of help by 70 people. So the answer to your question is yes, for the cases that are in the system. It knows about that, but it does not know about the special works activities that you might have done, which you helped a lot of people. What about perhaps?
John, if you want to respond, you can unmute yourself if you have
What about what?
other questions for
They have to
clarification.
keep track of how many households with the express assistance, it won't capture.
Here's John, you might have additional
don't.
question.
John, you,
So I think that answers the question. If you don't have special works, then that's good. I was mostly just referring to, there was a special document that said important change and spoke about how it is calculated. But I just wanted to be sure that that was really just for information purposes and was not something that we had to really take into consideration. And I'm not very familiar with the annual report wizard, but that would not be an opportunity to use the wizard to say, I had 25 additional people helped via an angel tree program. I can't go update it by using the wizard.
You can. The reason why I say go through Express Assistance is because then it'll appear on a report as in kind, and you'll just have another audit trail of it. But if you go in and just fat finger the wizard, you can do that. You can uncheck the calculation column. Let me show a little bit of it. So if we went to visits and services to people right there, and you wanted to update the, let me get rid of this, remove it. If you wanted to update the number of people helped for, let's see, for other in person, okay, then you would uncheck this. And then you would change the number of visits from 366 to 500. Now, as long as we're here, just as a reminder, these two buttons are your friend. You always do a recount after you change something and do a save. Okay? But yeah, John, you can go into the wizard, you can make that change. But by going through Express Assistance, it will also appear on a report. You can do inquiries. You have an audit of it. But either way will get you there. Okay?
Okay, got it.
Next section.
Okay, so we did visits and services. How about in-kind services and goods? The information again comes from closed cases with assistance and Express Assistance for goods only. That's this section right here. Express Assistance doesn't deal with these categories, if you will. That comes directly from in-kind, from your assist types when you're in your workflow. So any questions about this section right here, the in-kind services and goods?
I don't see any.
Don't have any.
You can always come back to it if they.
Okay, and once again, because it doesn't have an asterisk, that means that you can go through the wizard, and that's what we call this. When you come into your annual report, this is a wizard, and it is section by section by section. You can change those values if you wanted to change them. Okay, so then this section right here, and I gotta apologize because this report, sometimes, Agile just kind of plot things in places. And this is definitely out of place because this is the summation of your total hours and total miles. And it shouldn't appear here, it should be at the end of the hours and miles report. But as long as we're here, let's talk about it. Okay, the total member hours and miles come from the hours and miles detail report below. And I'm going to explain to you where they come from in a minute. So when you look at the hours and you look at the miles there, that's from the detail of the hours and miles report. Then you have the ability to put in non-member hours. Now you can do that one or two ways. You can go over to the wizard, and if you go to the hours and miles section, you could just put a value in right here where it says total hours, non-members. And again, make sure you do a recalculation and a save. And then you could print the report or preview the report, and it'll show the number that you entered in. So that's one way you can do it. The other way you can do it is, and I hate to do this, but I'll do it anyway. You could go to volunteer task and you can enter in non-member non-member hours right here. And that's another way of doing it. I suggest that you use the wizard. I think it's faster for you to do that way. You don't have to enter in a lot of information, and there's really no record keeping anyway. But anyway, that's what I would do. So that's how you get the, I gotta get there again.
Mhm.
Okay. I can't grab that.
That's okay. I don't think they can see that because I'm not able to see it on my.
Okay,
my
good.
laptop.
Okay, so that's how you get the non-member hours in.
So it's
There's a question?
clarification, just clarification. Oh, no, you're good.
So like I said, this is pretty much out of place. It really doesn't belong here on the report, but it is, so we need to discuss it. Okay, so there isn't any other questions on that? Then we're gonna get to the infamous appendix.
We're gonna
And I think that's where we're gonna get some questions. Okay, so the first one is the membership. Now, before I get asked any questions, let me tell you what I think I know is wrong with this report. First of all, we don't have a breakout in the membership, comparative membership. We don't have a breakout of the 40 and over. So we know that, okay? The second thing is if you need to change these totals, which you can do because there is not an asterisk. First of all this information comes from the members' My Profile page. As you know, when you set up a member, the member sets up their ethnicity, they set up their age group, they set up all this information, they enter it all in, and what CMS does is just accumulate those totals and then breaks it out by ethnicity and by age group. Okay, that's all CMS does. So that's where the raw information comes from. It comes from My Profile data. Now, as you know, you can go into the wizard and you can also change that information. And for those of you that missed the annual report training class, the way you do that, the C means it's calculated by CMS. So that's a calculated field. So if it's checked, CMS calculated. If it's unchecked and you put in a value, it will accept that value. And if you wanted to go back to the calculated amount that was in there originally, just check it and click recalculate, and it'll go back to that original amount or original value, should I say. So that's what I know about it. And the one thing I'll also say that is wrong, or should I say needs improvement, is in the wizard. If you see, you can see that you can change the values for under 19 and 19 to 39, but you cannot for 40 and over. Hopefully that's going to get repaired by October 1st, that you'll be able to update these values as well in the wizard. Okay, so now I'll stop at the membership and ask for any questions.
Laura, did you have a question? You're unmuted, so you could ask yours now.
I'm sorry. No, well, my question had to do with the handbook actually. So it doesn't have anything to do with the reports. But I do have a comment about the previous page. The reason why the miles and the hours are there for the tasks is because the president and the treasurer have to sign that page. So all the information that's pertinent to approval is got to be on those pages. That's my comment. But anyway,
I didn't know that the hours and I didn't know that the hours and miles was okay.
Jared, this is a good.
Really? Because we were requesting that get removed, but what's
yeah,
that?
'cause
Cheryl's saying that the reason
I think
why.
it's Laura.
Oh,
Yes,
Laura, I'm sorry, Laura. Laura's saying the reason why this block, this table is here is because the president and the treasurer is signing off on everything above here.
Right, they're attesting to it.
which is also the hours and miles
Mhm.
block, and not just the summation at the very end.
Correct.
I'm not sure. I mean, it makes sense, but I don't know for fact if that's the reason why. Again, we're emulating what Nationals asked for. I don't think we've created something other than over and above what National asked for whenever we, submit this. Just to give you kind of a background, this is something that, all the way out the district, if you were an isolated conference meeting, you didn't point to a district or a council, they would be asking you for this exact format. We're just emulating it. So I probably have to go to council and ask them.
Yeah, because,
Well, that's how it was explained to me when I asked that question before. Some time ago, when I became treasurer.
huh, I never thought of it that way. It makes sense, kind of, but what about the other information? I understand, like the membership. Wouldn't you think that they'd be?
Those are
signing-
demographic information. What's above is the summary of both, what we would consider something that we actually put in the way of actual value that we provide.
In kind.
How about gift cards and vouchers? I mean, I'm looking at some of the things below the line.
Bill, we're getting
Yeah,
into your
those,
question.
but I think that's a further explanation of what's above, isn't it?
Yes, I think that's kind of what I was how I was
The
explaining.
breakout of gift cards and vouchers.
Yeah, but it's captured above. It's captured in the financials.
Yeah, well, it's captured in the.
Right, it's just a
numbers.
further
Okay,
explanation.
okay, that's fine. Then that's a good explanation. We'll go with that one right now.
Jerry.
Okay,
But mark it down and we'll get it conclusively
yeah,
addressed.
Jerry, could you answer Bill's question? Can you please differentiate between active and associate member status?
Active members, there's a definition to an active member. An active member is somebody who comes to the meetings, comes to your monthly meetings, your twice a month meetings. They are involved on an ongoing basis with the activities, doing casework or other types of roles. An associate member is somebody that doesn't necessarily come to the meetings, but participates in some of the activities. Maybe it's somebody who comes every once in a while. For instance, somebody who works in your food pantry. Somebody works in your food pantry but doesn't come to any of the meetings and has not gone through any of the training.
And I would add
They would be
also-
somebody who would be an associate member, or somebody who just works on special events once or twice a year. Does that help?
And if we're looking at the rule, also active members are Catholic and eligible for leadership. Those are two
Yeah, good point.
qualities, or not qualities, I'll say, just two requirements that associate members aren't necessarily held to.
Does that help?
Yeah, that does. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Okay, so now we move to direct aid. This is just a breakout of the expense lines 6 and 7 in the treasurer report above. It's just a detail. If you take lines 6 and 7 of the treasury report and you add them up together, this is just the assistance types, the dollar amounts that we provided. That's all that is. And once again, because it has an asterisk, it means you cannot change any of these values. It's just a derivative from the treasury report itself. Okay, everybody the treasurer should be very familiar with that. Okay. Gift vouchers, gift cards and vouchers. Does have an asterisk, which means you cannot change this in the wizard. It comes from closed cases with assistance and express assistance. And for those of you that use express assistance, one of the assistant types, or many assistant types there, are for vouchers. And you would, obviously, if you were using express assistance, give somebody a voucher, it would be accounted for here. The number given would be 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever the amount is, number of people helped, and the total value itself. Okay, but to answer the question before, if you gave somebody a voucher, we'll say for $880, that would be accounted for in the assistance visits and services to people and the number of help and that sort of thing. So that's this section right here. Any questions about gift cards and vouchers section on the report? Nope. Okay, we'll move on. Other visits and services data. Once again, closed cases with assistance. This comes from the assistant category, assistance aid category. So if you went to providing somebody assistance and you went to in kind, you would have the drop down and it would say assistance aid. And that's where then you go over to the resource drop down and you would see these resources here. Jobs attained, referrals, whatever. Okay, and once again, because it doesn't have an asterisk next to it, means it can be changed from the wizard. This one, John Kurtzky, if you're still there, this one gave me gray hair last year, more gray hair than anything, because the telephone contacts only, and it says this is a split from other in-persons. Well, you got 331 number of people helped. The way that this was interpreted by many conferences is I had other in-person visits of whatever it was, and I have to go back up here, 729, okay? Is that right? 729. And I had telephone contacts of 300 and whatever it was, 331. And of course, that's wrong. The 331 is inclusive in the 729. This is only a breakout. Hopefully, we're going to fix this and have a separate line in the visit types right here and have telephone, just like we have all the other ones. If you notice that if you were working a case and you went to the visit tab and asked you for a visit type, all of these would be in the pull down, and so would telephone be in the pull down. So we should be reporting on that separately so that there isn't any confusion that that other number is included in this number. So, and I know most of you, and we certainly did too, especially during the pandemic, have a lot of telephone contacts and very few home/other in-person visit types. And I'm sure we still got a lot of them. So if you see this number here, it's just sort of like a memo item. That's the way I would say it is. That's what I would call it, because it is included in the other in-person visits. Okay, questions about that one? That one was a big one last year, and rightly so, because all of us were doing telephone contacts.
So a couple questions here, John. We've got John Kirksey. If you want to go ahead and let's see, can we de-emphasize telephone only status in our review?
I'm sorry,
John, maybe you can
John.
weigh in.
Yeah, what do you mean in the review? What review?
Well, so we produced the report, which is pulling from all of the data that's been entered. Your explanation is one thing about the difference between other in-person and the telephone only, but it still seems pretty confusing. So if we can say that the other in-person number helped is really what is the point to focus on, then we can really de-emphasize this telephone only, which is what my request and question is.
Yeah, again, This is just information only, the way I look at it. You should be only emphasizing other in-person visit, because that's the only thing that counts. This number is included there. So I think you should. Now, what I said is in the future, and future might be very, very soon, we're going to break out telephone as being a visit type, just like it is in your dropdown. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question. This is the number that you should be focused on right there. Forget about that 331.
The thing is, the other in-person would include office visits, where people come into an office or where people have set up some space at the parish, for people to come in. So it's kind of, you're right, John, it should be broken out further because telephone has become a big part. We want to start tracking the movement back and forth between telephone and actual in-person, whether that's home visit or other in-person. Because theoretically, telephone is not an in-person visit.
No,
Although National did come out and say, we consider it an in-person visit, but it really
During
isn't.
COVID, maybe?
Yeah, during COVID. they
well,
did.
the thing we're gonna change is this needs to say visit types. That's all it is. These are visit types, just like they are on the visit tab. They're visit types.
Laura,
And one of them needs to be telephone. It's that simple.
Understand.
does that answer your question, Laura? You had a question about phone versus in person?
Now, I have kind of the same question as John, but the reason I ask is because oftentimes we do, we have the helpline, we call the people and we get their information and find out, what their need is. Oftentimes they cannot come to our meeting face to face.
Right.
So what we do is we have a group me message board, and we discuss the case on the group me message board so that we can find out whether we can help these people or not without them attending. So we count that call as an in-person, even though they didn't come into the meeting?
How did you contact them? Through telephone?
Yes, because they call the helpline, leave their number and, and their name. We call them back and take, and get the information. And then at that point, we usually set up appointments to come in and see us on our meeting day. But oftentimes they can't because they work nights or they have childcare problems or, there's various reasons, no transportation. So we, have decided that we can work through our group me message board and try to help them that way, because the members are all on the message board and we can.
Right, that's a discussion, and I know St. Gerard, you review every case with your conference members.
Yes, we do.
That's separate from how you're administering directly to the first need.
no.
And the way you're doing it, it sounds like is by telephone. So it's a telephone visit.
Sometimes it's by telephone. Most of the time they come and meet in person at.
That's
our
other
facility.
in person.
Yes, but, right, and we have that part, but the people that cannot come in that we help via telephone, how do we, will that be?
It's a telephone visit. When you go over, okay, you set up a case.
Okay, so I still use it as a telephone visit, but it'll be counted in the other. Okay.
Exactly, for now.
Okay,
We have requested a change to break that out so that
Right.
telephone stands by its own.
Yeah.
And we don't conflate the two.
okay,
So.
yeah. So I just want to
right
make
now-
sure that the numbers I have, on the telephone and the other are on the other. And
That's
that's where I should look. Okay,
That's
all right,
right.
that's all I need. Okay.
Yeah. And just one thing, John, that we gotta be careful of is, I'm pretty sure these reports are dictated by National. So we probably have to go to National and ask them to make a change, because if I remember correctly, Aguilar, they take explicit directions from National on how the report should be formatted. So it's not a St. Vincent de Paul, Georgia change. It's not an Aguilar change, It would be national that would be dictating the change, that's all.
Point.
Okay,
For 10 minutes?
yeah, I talked to Paul about that. but-
Understand, but Paul might be under, obligation to national.
Okay, got it. Okay, so I think that leads us to this section right here, client demographics. Another one that was pretty confusing last year, got a lot of calls on this, and the calls came around, what's counted here? Is it just the client, or is it the client and the household members? And the answer is, it's the client and the household members. So the breakout of male and female and ethnicity is it's the client plus all the household members for that case. That's where these counts come from. And again, this was a bit confusing, got a lot of questions. People thought it was understated, some thought it was overstated. Matter of fact, they thought it was overstated. But that's where the numbers come from. And again, because it has an asterisk, you cannot change this in the from the wizard. Does that answer that was the biggest question I think around here last year. Any questions on client demographics? Nope. Okay, programs. Again, this just coming from the cases when you go over and you click on Vincentian programs and you submit referrals to any of these 3 programs, the system just keeps track of the number of referrals. But once again, this annual report is built around closed cases, closed with assistance and closed without assistance. So if you have open cases, CMS does not count it on the annual report at all. That's why you got to close your cases, or else nothing's going to get counted. Okay, and the assistance by zip code, it has an asterisk, which means that you cannot change it. And of course, it's just a summation by the zip codes of all the closed cases, and it spreads it by unique households. Jerry, this is the first time I think I've ever seen unique households, by the way. Value in kind, and it breaks out by in kind and direct aid. Okay. And then the hours and miles report. This one, a lot of confusion around this. Got asked a lot of questions about how do I change this? How do I add more hours and miles? Well, the way you do that is you go to my profile, you go to volunteer task, and you add. And this is how you do it right here. And then you add your hours and miles for specific categories, whether that be Christmas program or that be counting collections or whatever. You got to get your hours and miles in. The only thing CMS keeps track of, the only thing is the hours and miles, the time you spent on the case. That's it. That's all it knows about. So if you don't put in the time for your conference meetings, it doesn't know about it. If you don't put in time for your training, it doesn't know about it. So that's why it's real important that you can do this now, by the way. You don't have to wait for October 1st. You go in there now and start entering in hours and miles. You can do it at a group level under one person's ID. Each member doesn't need to do this. Matter of fact, at Holy Family, as an example, our conference meetings are entered in by our secretary. She goes around, she counts the number of people that are there. We spend 2 hours. She does the multiplication. It looks like everybody traveled about 5 miles, puts that in there. We're done for the month.
So Carla had that question last week after she watched the live video. I don't know, Carla, if you want to chime in, but I was just going to kind of capture what you said, that she was asking who should be doing that. And I said, my response was, I didn't think it was a who, but that it just needed to be a consistent person so it wasn't doubly entered.
That's right.
Or
That's right.
coordinated.
And yeah, it all depends, like I said, with the conference meetings, that's intuitive. That's your secretary. Your secretary should be doing it. What we do at Holy Family for all the other special work projects that we have, that we might have a Christmas program or a Thanksgiving program, the president actually enters that in before we run the annual report. That's
Yeah,
That's Carly.
And yeah, and based on the last time, I've decided, especially for this year, because all of our members are new, other than me, I'm the one that will be putting that in. So I really was appreciative of you letting me know that that would be okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is okay to put in hours and miles. It's not okay not to. And that's what we run into, because we're understating the real value that we're providing back to the community, back to the clients by not doing that. We're doing a disservice. So it is important that you just don't take what CMS has, because this is the only line CMS knows about right there. The client visit line. It doesn't know about anything else. And I'm positive in all of our conferences, we have a lot more going on than just working cases.
Now, it's interesting, John, as you have in here for Holy Family, casework and conference meetings. So your treasurer doesn't put in all the volunteer effort that the treasurer puts in?
He will at the end.
Well, I mean, that's the annual report. I guess he hasn't.
No,
put it in
no,
yet.
it's not it's the annual report at a certain point.
Okay, I got
Yeah,
you.
I only took this, I took
This is a
snap-
preview. This isn't a final.
This is nowhere near final. No, if that's all it says, then we're in deep poo-poo. No, the treasurer go in and he will enter in his hours and miles. Phil will talk to the case intake people to get a feel for the number of days, the number of hours, and Phil will actually enter them in under data entry.
Yeah.
You know, your intake is a good example. There is a category of data entry.
Question I used to always get is, obviously the president or the vice president does a lot of administrative work on behalf of the conference. And I don't think there is a category saying president, task, but it's under probably administration.
You got, well, there's a case administration right there that we have.
But there's also,
Beyond
isn't there just general administration,
I don't
Other,
think so.
office work
office work?
Yeah, there you go.
or miscellaneous.
So, again, it's the president or the officers that do a lot of work in preparation and managing. They should definitely put their hours in as volunteer hours.
John Kirksey, do you have a question? I'm only able to see part of it. I don't know if that was on purpose.
That was a typo, but I do have a question, and it really is pertains to all of the reporting that conferences are responsible for September 20th, September 30th, annual, the internal audit and the disbursement collection procedures and the ultimately the annual report. We've gotten very good at uploading documents. So are we going back to an email and 75 times however many documents, or can we upload those?
I'm not sure I understand.
Neither. What documents you talk about, John?
Okay, the internal audit, the disbursement collection procedures, the disbursement procedures and the collection procedures, and then ultimately the annual report. The email from Cheryl requested that we email them, but we upload the monthly report. Can we not upload all of these respective reports?
Theoretically, you can. We had a discussion about that, John. Because the annual report is expecting there to be a signature. We weren't sure if it, this year, to ask all the conferences to physically sign the report and scan it in and electronically submit it. That's why we asked for the email this year. I think where we're moving towards, John, is eventually all this gets captured within CMS. And that we'll just view it at the conference support centers. But, you know, right now, I think the answer, I think I understand your question. I understand where you're going with this, and it's where we want to go, which is elimination of extra manual effort, right? And having everything inputted through the system. Not this year, but I think next year we'll be better prepared as we train our conferences, all of our conferences, to do that. Is that where you were going with this question?
Yeah, yeah. So not this year.
Yeah, again, the issue is just figuring out a way to have an easy way for the treasurer and the president to sign off and approve the annual report and get it to us. Trying to ask every one of the conferences to do it through CMS for this year might be too hard of a task, that's all. That's why we asked for the email submission or physically mailing it in. Trust me, we'd rather have it all go through CMS
Will it be an
than
email?
to try to keep track of all of these 73 reports coming in.
We're at our time limit. There's one last question from Laura. Question on email, will that be an email signature? You just answered that. I think it's got to be printed and signed.
Well, yeah, we would theoretically, you would print it, sign it, and because we have no way of doing a DocuSign, we have no way of having it electronically signatured. Maybe we'll get there, but right now it's printed, sign it, scan it back in, and email it to us.
Just like you do. with the
Cheryl, do you
iPhone.
want to comment? I see you've unmuted yourself.
Yeah, I just wanted to differentiate between the annual report, which Jerry's talking about needing to be emailed, versus the other documents that we need, the finance department needs for closing the year and for audit documentation purposes, which are the internal audit reports and the income and disbursement procedures. And it would help us a lot if those documents could be uploaded to CMS. So would that be feasible to do this year?
No. Not for.
I think for our sophisticated conferences, I'm worried about our conferences that they're just not used to doing this, that's all.
Partial B.
It was something that Cheryl would have to figure out if she can manage, you know, when she gets it through CMS versus when she gets it.
Where are you gonna upload it in CMS? Where you do the bank?
It should be under documents.
I know, but are you doing, where you do bank statements?
Yeah. Yeah, you'd upload it to the same place we're doing the monthly report. And to my guess is every conference is doing that every month already.
You mean in here, John, right here, where you
Yeah.
have to upload the bank statements?
Exactly.
That sounds like it.
Maybe we have a separate category for audit reports, or should we
Finance.
create a separate
Well,
category?
once you use one that's not being used.
True, but it's always nice when it's.
I know,
accurately-
but
Really late.
Transparent.
he's
yeah.
not gonna make a change between
No,
now and the
not
end of the
this
year. But going forward, yeah, come up with exactly where you want it, we'll put it through, but I can almost tell you, based upon what I know Agile Art's got on their plate right now, they're not gonna make any change like that right now, for this fiscal year.
Right, it's kind of late.
It's late, but next fiscal year, we got opportunity. And you can decide where you want it and what you want to call it.
Does that answer your question, Cheryl or John?
I guess we'll take that as a yes.
Well, I don't think you answered it, so no, it didn't answer it. But if you could say, put it where we put the monthly reports, that is an answer. Or no, we'll work on it in 12 months is another answer. But
Well, I can't tell you, well, Cheryl will probably tell you where she wants it. I can only tell you is that we'll submit it as an enhancement request for fiscal year 2023.
I mean, we could go anywhere as long as we decide where we, what we want to tell everybody, put it under
Right,
conference.
you have to have a consistent place.
Right.
which is fine, as long as, I mean, I will be able to find it by looking, or, you know, looking into that category under documentation.
Yeah,
I'm just saying it gets really cumbersome. Because when the conferences send in their reports, oftentimes they just do a scan and they send it. It's not labeled, it's not titled, we don't know who it's coming from. It's just a PDF. And then we have to rename everything. So,
No, I agree. Again, having everything captured in CMS would be great. Again, the challenge you've got right now is where do you put it now?
Right.
Where you put it in the future, and then there'll be confusion. So that's all. I think we should put an enhancement in for next year. I don't think it'd be hard for us to do that.
No.
And we could put a category called audit,
Yep.
audit documents or income disbursement documents.
You
And
separate
they
it.
can be clearly identified so that people know where to upload it, and where Cheryl, you and your staff will know exactly where to go to get it.
Yeah, that's fine. For 2023, I think that's doable.
All right.
Okay, we went a little past our time, 7 minutes. If you have any other questions, just use the CMS support community website and send me a general question. I'll be glad to answer it. So once again, thank you very much for your time and have a great day.
Thanks,
care.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
I'd love to work on an enhancement to make it easier, and I'd also love to work on an enhancement for the annual report,
Did you close the meeting here?
For the end.
where there's a signature, an electronic signature can be embedded into the function